Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you ignored every red flag? Claire trusted her husband for 9 years. She signed every document. She signed every paper. I trust my husband, she said. And one morning, she woke up to find herself $715,000 in debt. Her home, her job, her savings, gone. Her husband and her closest friend were building a new life together. But the thing that destroyed her wasn't even that, because what she was about to learn would shatter her completely. My name is Dr. Sarah Bennett, and I've been a psychologist for over 20 years. In my career, I've heard thousands of stories of pain, loss, and betrayal. But some stories stay with you long after the session ends. Claire Hamilton's story is one of those. But what Claire didn't know yet was that Daniel's final words to her were only the beginning. It was a hot July afternoon when she first walked into my office. I remember because the air conditioning had broken that morning and I'd opened all the windows. A warm breeze was moving through the room when I heard the soft knock on my door. "Come in," I said. The door opened slowly, and there she was. Claire was 37 years old, but she looked older. Much older. Her face was drawn, pale, dark circles hung beneath her eyes like bruises. Her hair, which I would later learn had once been her pride, was pulled back in a messy bun. She wore an oversized sweater despite the heat, and her hands were trembling. She stood in the doorway for a moment as if deciding whether to stay or run. "Claire?" I asked gently. She nodded but didn't speak. "Please, come sit down." She moved slowly to the chair across from me and lowered herself into it carefully, as if her body hurt. Her hands gripped the armrests. She stared at the floor. I'd seen this before. This wasn't just sadness, this was trauma. "Claire," I said softly, "I'm Dr. Sarah Bennett. You're safe here. This is your space. You can take all the time you need." She didn't look up. Her breathing was shallow, quick. I could see her chest rising and falling rapidly beneath the sweater. We sat in silence for 5 minutes. I didn't push. I never push. Healing begins when the patient is ready, not when I am. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know where to start." "Wherever feels right," I said. She swallowed hard. Her throat seemed tight, constricted. "My marriage, it's over." I nodded. "That must be very painful." "It wasn't supposed to end like this. How is it supposed to end?" She looked up at me for the first time. Her eyes were red, exhausted. Tears pooled at the edges but didn't fall. It wasn't supposed to end at all. She thought those were the happiest years of her life. She had no idea she was already trapped. But what Claire didn't know yet was that Daniel's final words to her were only the beginning. Before we continue with Claire's story, I want to pause for a moment and ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you missed the warning signs? Have you ever looked back and realized that the person you loved was someone you never really knew? If Claire's story is resonating with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories of survival, healing, and hope, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Now, let's continue. Over the next 40 minutes of that first session, Claire told me pieces of her story. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough for me to understand the depth of her pain. She'd been married to Daniel Carter for 9 years. They'd met when she was 30 and she'd fallen hard. Daniel was charismatic, confident, successful. He called himself an entrepreneur. He had big ideas, big dreams, and Claire believed in him. At the time, Claire was thriving in her career. She'd worked her way up to marketing director at a mid-sized tech company. She was making good money, building a strong reputation. She was independent, capable, strong. "I thought we were a team," she told me, her voice cracking. "I thought we were building a life together." "What changed?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. "I don't know. Maybe nothing changed. Maybe it was always like this, and I just didn't see it." That's when I began to understand. This wasn't just about a marriage ending. This was about a woman who no longer trusted her own perception of reality. "Claire," I said gently, "can you tell me what happened? What made you come here today?" She took a shaky breath. 2 months ago, I lost everything. My money, my home, my job, my husband, my best friend. Her voice dropped to a whisper, and the future I thought I was going to have. I leaned forward slightly. "Claire, can you tell me what you mean when you say you lost everything? What happened 2 months ago?" She closed her eyes as if the memory itself was too painful to face while looking at me. I found out that everything was a lie. She thought those were the happiest years of her life. She had no idea she was already trapped. Claire met Daniel at a networking event in 2015. She was 28, ambitious, focused. He was 32, charming, persuasive. They talked for hours that night. He told her about his startup ideas, his vision for the future. She told him about her work, her goals. He made me feel seen, Claire said, like I mattered, like my opinions mattered. 6 months later, they were married. It was fast, she admitted, but it felt right. He felt right. The first 3 years of their marriage were, by Claire's account, wonderful. She continued excelling at work. Daniel worked on his business ventures. They traveled, they laughed, they talked about the future, but there was one thing they didn't do. I wanted children, Claire said, her voice breaking. I wanted them so badly. And Daniel? I asked. He said not yet. Always not yet. At first, Claire understood. They were building their careers, they needed financial stability, it made sense to wait. But years passed, and every time Claire brought it up, Daniel had a reason to postpone. Maybe next year. Let's wait until my business takes off. I'm just not ready yet. By the time Claire was 35, she was desperate. I told him my biological clock was ticking, she said. I told him I was running out of time, and do you know what he said? I waited. He said, maybe kids just aren't for us. Claire's hands clenched into fists. Not for us, like it was a mutual decision, but it wasn't. It was never mutual. How did that make you feel? I asked gently. Like I didn't matter, like what I wanted didn't matter. She paused, but I told myself he'd come around, that he just needed more time. Every time he said not yet, she believed him. She didn't know that what he really meant was not with you. And that signature, the one she thought meant nothing, would cost her everything. In year 4 of their marriage, Daniel came to Claire with a proposal. He said we should start a business together, Claire explained. A marketing consultancy. He'd handle the business side, and I'd handle the creative and strategy. Claire was excited. This felt like the partnership she'd always wanted. A shared dream. A shared future. I put in everything, she said. My savings, about $150,000. Everything I'd saved since I started working. And Daniel? I asked. He said he'd contribute too. He showed me business plans, projections. It all looked legitimate. But there was one thing Claire didn't know. He prepared all the paperwork, she continued. He said it would be easier since he had experience with business filings. I trusted him, so I just signed. Did you read the documents? I asked carefully. She closed her eyes. No, I trusted him. He was my husband. When she opened her eyes again, tears were streaming down her face. The company was registered solely in his name. I wasn't listed as a partner. I wasn't listed at all. I'd just given him $150,000. And that signature, the one she thought meant nothing, would cost her everything. I watched as the weight of that realization settled over her again. Rachel had been in her life for 10 years. She trusted her with her deepest secrets. But what Claire didn't know was, Rachel had already made her choice. Rachel Morrison had been Claire's best friend since college. They'd met in their junior year, bonded over late-night study sessions and terrible cafeteria coffee. After graduation, they'd stayed close. Bridesmaids at each other's weddings, weekly coffee dates, emergency phone calls at 2 a.m. Rachel knew everything about me, Claire said. My fears, my dreams, my struggles with Daniel about having kids, everything. How did Rachel and Daniel get along? I asked. Great, Claire said. Too great, I guess. But at the time, I was happy they liked each other. It made things easier. Rachel was single. She'd gone through a difficult divorce 3 years earlier and had thrown herself into her work. She was a graphic designer, freelance. She had a flexible schedule. She started coming over more often, Claire remembered. Especially when I was working late or traveling for work. Daniel said it was nice to have company. I felt my chest tighten. I could see where this was going. Did you notice anything unusual about their relationship? I asked. Claire was quiet for a long moment. Looking back, yes, but at the time, no. Rachel asked a lot of questions about Daniel, about his work, his schedule, and Daniel. He was always extra attentive when she was around, but I thought he was just being a good host. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid. Claire, I said firmly, You weren't stupid. You trusted the two people you were supposed to be able to trust. Rachel had been in her life for 10 years. She trusted her with her deepest secrets. But what Claire didn't know was, Rachel had already made her choice. The realization hit Claire's face like a wave. Every time he said not yet, she believed him. She didn't know that what he really meant was not with you. While Claire focused on her career and tried to process her grief about not having children, Daniel was busy weaving a financial web around her. In year 6 of their marriage, they bought a house, a beautiful 4-bedroom home in a good neighborhood. Daniel said it should be in my name, Claire explained. He said my credit score was better, that we'd get better mortgage terms. I nodded, taking notes. So the house was in your name? Yes, but what I didn't know was that Daniel had taken out a second mortgage on it. He forged my signature on the documents. I found out later that he'd been doing it for 2 years. The house that was supposed to be their dream home was now a $280,000 liability. Then there were the credit cards. He asked if he could be an authorized user on my cards, Claire said, for business expenses. I thought it made sense. But Daniel didn't use the cards for business. He maxed them out, all of them. $95,000 in credit card debt. And through it all, Claire had no idea. She was working 60-hour weeks, traveling for her job, trying to build a future. She trusted Daniel to handle their finances. He always said everything was fine, she whispered. He'd show me our joint account. There was always money in it. I never thought to look deeper. Why would you? I asked. In a healthy marriage, you shouldn't have to audit your spouse's every financial move. She nodded slowly, but I could see she didn't fully believe it yet. The signs were everywhere. But when you trust someone completely, you don't see what you're not looking for. Claire stared at her hands, turning them over as if searching for an answer written on her palms. The signs were everywhere. But when you trust someone completely, you don't see what you're not looking for. It started in year 8. At least, that's when Claire believes it started. She was on a business trip to Seattle, a 3-day conference. Daniel and Rachel were both in town. Rachel texted me every day, Claire said, asking how the conference was going, telling me she missed me, and I thought, what a good friend. But Rachel wasn't texting from her apartment. She was texting from Claire's house, from Claire's bed. The affair between Daniel and Rachel had begun. They were careful, Claire said. So careful. They only saw each other when I was traveling or working late. Daniel would tell me he had business meetings. Rachel would say she was busy with client work. For an entire year, they carried on their relationship in secret. And Claire suspected nothing. I noticed Rachel was being a bit distant, Claire admitted. We didn't see each other as much. But she said she was overwhelmed with work. I believed her. There were other signs, small things. Daniel's phone was always face down. He changed his passcode and said it was for security reasons. He started going to the gym more often, bought new clothes, started wearing cologne. I thought he was having a midlife crisis, Claire said with a hollow laugh. I thought he was just trying to feel young again. I didn't think. She couldn't finish the sentence. What didn't you think? I prompted gently. I didn't think he'd be capable of something like this. Not Daniel, not the man I married, but the man she married was never real, and she was about to discover just how deep the deception went. That letter was her first warning, but she trusted him. She always trusted him, and that trust was his weapon. February 2024. Claire came home from work to find an envelope from the bank. She opened it absently, expecting a statement. Instead, she found a notice. Your mortgage payments are past due. She stared at it, confused. I don't have a mortgage payment, she thought. The house is paid off. But it wasn't. Daniel had taken out a home equity loan, a big one. When she asked him about it, he was smooth, dismissive. Oh, that's just a mix-up, he said. I'll call the bank tomorrow and sort it out. But why would? Claire, I said I'll handle it. His tone was sharp, final. Claire backed off. I should have pushed, she told me. I should have called the bank myself, but I didn't want to seem like I didn't trust him. And that's exactly what he was counting on, I said softly. That letter was her first warning, but she trusted him. She always trusted him. And that trust was his weapon. Claire's voice cracked as she continued. A month later, in March, another letter arrived. This time it was from her credit card company. Your account has exceeded its limit. Claire logged into her account. Her heart stopped. $75,000 in charges, all within the past 6 months. This time she confronted Daniel. What is this? What are these charges? Daniel's face darkened. Why are you checking up on me? I'm not checking up on you. The credit card company sent a notice. You're being paranoid, Claire. Paranoid? There's $75,000 in charges. Business expenses. I told you I was using the card for business. This much? Yes. God, Claire, do you not trust me? Is that what this is about? And that's when it started, the gaslighting. He made her question her own reality. And the scariest part? She started to believe him. Over the next few weeks, Daniel masterfully manipulated Claire's perception of reality. You're overreacting. You're being emotional. You're imagining things. Why are you so suspicious all the time? Every time Claire raised a concern, Daniel turned it back on her. He made her feel like she was the problem, like she was being irrational, controlling, paranoid. I started to believe him, Claire said, her voice small. I thought maybe I was being too anxious. Maybe I was stressed from work. Maybe I was overthinking everything. She stopped checking the accounts. She stopped asking questions. I felt like I was going crazy, she whispered. This is one of the most insidious forms of psychological abuse. Gaslighting makes victims doubt their own perceptions, memories, and sanity. It's a form of control that leaves deep psychological scars. Claire, I said gently. You weren't crazy. You were being manipulated by someone who knew exactly how to exploit your trust. She looked at me with hollow eyes. But I should have known. No, I said firmly. He should have been trustworthy. He made her question her own reality. And the scariest part? She started to believe him. I watched as Claire wrapped her arms around herself, a protective gesture that spoke volumes. When she walked into that bank, she thought she was just checking on a mistake. She didn't know she was about to lose everything. April 14th, 2024, a day Claire will never forget. She woke up that morning feeling uneasy. There'd been another notice in the mail the day before, this time from a collections agency. Daniel had left early for a business meeting. Claire sat at the kitchen table, staring at the notice. Something was wrong. She could feel it. She got dressed and drove to the bank. I'd like to check on my accounts, please, she told the banker. The woman pulled up her information on the computer. Her face changed. Miss Hamilton, are you aware that your joint account balance is 0? Claire's stomach dropped. What? No, that's not possible. I'm showing multiple large withdrawals over the past 3 months. The account was drained 2 weeks ago. How much was in there? According to the records, $340,000. Claire couldn't breathe. That was everything. Every penny she'd saved since she started working. Her entire financial cushion, gone. When she walked into that bank, she thought she was just checking on a mistake. She didn't know she was about to lose everything. There must be a mistake, she said. There's no mistake, and Miss Hamilton, there's more. The banker showed her the records. The second mortgage on her house, $280,000. The credit card debt now $95,000. Business loans taken out in her name, $60,000. Total, $715 in debt. Who authorized these? Claire asked, her voice shaking. You did. Your signature is on all the documents. I never signed these. I'm sorry, Miss Hamilton, but we have signed contracts. If you believe there's fraud involved, you'll need to contact the police. Claire left the bank in a daze. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the steering wheel. She drove home. She had to talk to Daniel. There had to be an explanation. But when she walked through the door, she knew immediately that something was different. Daniel's clothes were gone from the closet. His toiletries were gone from the bathroom. His laptop was gone from the desk, and on the kitchen table was an envelope. She could have survived the financial loss. She could have survived the betrayal, but what he said next shattered her completely. Claire's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, Daniel's handwriting. Claire, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry it had to end this way, but I can't keep living a lie. Rachel, we have been for 2 years. We're starting a new life together. I know this will hurt you, but it's what I need. What we need. The money was mine too. I used it to invest in our future. You'll understand eventually. Don't try to contact me. Daniel. Claire read the note 3 times. Her brain couldn't process it. Rachel, her best friend. 2 years. She grabbed her phone and called Daniel. It went straight to voicemail. She called Rachel. Same thing. She sent texts. No response. And then, because she didn't know what else to do, she went to Rachel's apartment. She knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again, harder. Rachel, I know you're in there. Finally the door opened. But it wasn't Rachel. It was Daniel. He stood there in Rachel's doorway, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. Behind him, Claire could see Rachel standing in the living room, her arms wrapped around herself. You need to leave, Daniel said coldly. 2 years? Claire's voice cracked. 2 years you've been lying to me? I didn't want it to be this way. You stole from me, you destroyed my credit, you took everything. I took what was mine. It wasn't yours, it was ours. Daniel's face was blank, emotionless. There is no ours anymore. She could have survived the financial loss, she could have survived the betrayal. But what he said next shattered her completely. Rachel stepped forward. Claire, I'm sorry, we didn't mean for it to happen, but... Don't. Don't, Claire said, her voice shaking. Don't you dare. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but Claire didn't care. This woman had betrayed her in the worst possible way. Why? Claire asked, looking at Daniel. Why did you do this? He shrugged. You and I, we weren't right for each other. You were always so focused on work. You didn't make time for me. Rachel understands me. I wanted children, Claire screamed. I begged you for children and you kept saying no. Daniel's face hardened. I didn't want children with you, Claire. I never did. The words hit her like a physical blow. And then, he said the thing that destroyed her. Rachel is pregnant. 3 months. In that moment, she didn't just lose her husband. She lost her best friend, her savings, her home, her future, and the child she'd always dreamed of was being carried by the woman who destroyed her. Claire's knees buckled. She grabbed the doorframe to steady herself. In that moment, she didn't just lose her husband. She lost her best friend. Her savings, her home, her future, and the child she'd always dreamed of was being carried by the woman who destroyed her. Claire doesn't remember leaving Rachel's apartment. She doesn't remember getting in her car or driving away. The next thing she remembers is waking up in a hospital bed. You collapsed, the doctor told her. A neighbor saw you sitting in your car, unresponsive. They called an ambulance. Claire had suffered a severe panic attack. Her blood pressure had spiked dangerously high. She was dehydrated, malnourished, and in shock. They kept her in the hospital for 2 days. Then they transferred her to the psychiatric ward. She stayed there for 2 weeks. I wanted to die, Claire told me, her voice flat. I didn't see the point in living anymore. During those 2 weeks, Claire learned the full extent of Daniel's betrayal. Her lawyer visited and went through everything. The business they'd started together? It never existed. Daniel had taken her $150,000 and used it for himself. The house? He'd forged her signature on the second mortgage documents. The credit cards? He'd racked up charges on luxury items, trips, gifts, all for Rachel. The joint account? He'd systematically drained it over 3 months, transferring the money to an offshore account she couldn't access. And the worst part? Most of it was untraceable. He'd covered his tracks well. My lawyer said I could try to sue, Claire said. But Daniel's lawyer was better. And all the documents had my signature. Forged or not, they looked legitimate. The court would likely rule against me. And they did. In June, the judge ruled that Claire had willingly signed all financial documents, that there was no proof of coercion or fraud, that Daniel had every legal right to withdraw from their joint account. The court said she signed the documents willingly. They said she had no case. And just like that, the justice system failed her too. Claire was left with $715,000 in debt and no legal recourse. She lost her job in May. She couldn't focus. She couldn't sleep. She was having panic attacks at work. Her employer suggested she take a leave of absence. She never went back. She sold the house, but after paying off the mortgages, she walked away with nothing. She moved into a small studio apartment in a cheaper part of town. And she cut off contact with everyone she knew. The mutual friends who sided with Daniel, the family members who didn't understand, the acquaintances who whispered behind her back. They all said the same thing, Claire told me. You must have known something was wrong. Why didn't you see the signs? How could you let this happen? She looked at me with broken eyes. How could I let this happen? The court said she signed the documents willingly. They said she had no case, and just like that, the justice system failed her too. That first session with Claire was just the beginning. Over the next 3 months, she came to see me every week. In the beginning, she could barely speak. She'd sit in the chair, staring at the floor, tears streaming silently down her face. But slowly, session by session, she began to open up. She told me about her childhood. A loving but strict family, parents who valued achievement and success. She'd always been the responsible one, the one who did everything right. I thought if I just worked hard enough, if I was just good enough, everything would be okay, she said. She told me about her career, how proud she'd been of her success, how she'd defined herself by her achievements. And now I have nothing. No job, no money, no husband, no future. She told me about the shame, the humiliation, the nights she lay awake, replaying every moment, looking for the signs she'd missed. I keep thinking, how did I not see it? And then I feel so stupid, so worthless. Claire, I said, leaning forward, can I ask you something? If a friend came to you with this exact story, would you tell her she was stupid? She was quiet for a moment. No, I'd tell her it wasn't her fault. Then why are you holding yourself to a different standard? She didn't have an answer. We worked through the trauma, piece by piece. I helped her understand that she wasn't stupid. She wasn't blind. She was a victim of calculated, deliberate manipulation. Claire, I told her in our 5th session, Daniel is a manipulator, possibly a sociopath. He planned this. He executed it carefully. You were not careless. You were targeted. But I should have known. Why? Because you're supposed to distrust the person you love? Because you're supposed to assume the worst about your spouse? That's not how healthy relationships work. She was quiet for a long time. Then what do I do now? She finally asked. How do I move forward? One day at a time, I said. One choice at a time. You start by recognizing that what happened to you was not your fault, and then you start rebuilding. But how? How do I trust again? How do I trust myself? That's what we're going to work on together. You don't have to do this alone. For the first time since she'd walked into my office, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not hope, not yet, but maybe, possibility. The turning point came in our 8th session. Claire walked in that day looking different. She was still tired, still sad, but there was something else in her eyes, something I hadn't seen before. Anger. I saw them yesterday, she said. Daniel and Rachel, they were at a restaurant, celebrating. How did that feel? At first I wanted to run, to hide. I felt that same panic, that same shame. She paused, but then I didn't. I walked past them. I held my head up, and I kept walking. That took a lot of strength. It did. And you know what I realized? I'm still here. After everything they did to me, I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still alive. They tried to destroy me, but they didn't. That was the moment I knew Claire was going to survive this. Rachel is showing now, Claire continued. I saw her bump, and it hurt. God, it hurt so much. That was supposed to be my life. Was my child. She wiped her eyes. But it's not. And maybe that's okay. Maybe I'm meant to have a different life, a different future. Over the next several sessions, Claire began to talk about rebuilding. She started doing freelance marketing work from home, small projects at first, but it was something. She joined a support group for people who'd experienced financial abuse. She found others who understood, who didn't judge, who believed her. She started exercising again. Just walks at first, then short runs. She started eating better, sleeping better. She wasn't healed, not by a long shot, but she was healing. 3 months after that first session, Claire came into my office with a small smile on her face. I got a job offer, she said. It's not as high level as my old position, and it pays less, but it's a start. Claire, that's wonderful. I'm still in debt. I'm still angry. I still have nightmares sometimes, but I'm learning to live again. I'm learning that I'm more than what happened to me. She looked at me with clear eyes. Thank you, Dr. Bennett, for believing me, for not judging me, for helping me see that I'm not broken. You were never broken, Claire. You were wounded. There's a difference. As I sit here reflecting on Claire's story, I think about how many people are going through something similar right now. How many people are being manipulated, gaslit, financially abused by the very people they trust most? Claire's story isn't over. She's still rebuilding. She still has hard days. Days when she questions everything. Days when the anger overwhelms her. Days when she grieves the life she thought she'd have. But she's surviving. And surviving is the first step toward thriving. If you're watching this and something in Claire's story resonated with you, if you're experiencing manipulation, if you've been betrayed, if you're struggling to trust yourself, please know that you're not alone. It's not your fault. You're not stupid. You're not broken. You were targeted by someone who knew how to exploit your trust. And that says everything about them and nothing about you. Reach out. Talk to someone. Find a therapist. Join a support group. Take it one day at a time. And to those of you who are supporting someone going through this, please don't judge. Don't ask, why didn't you see the signs? That question doesn't help. It only adds to the shame. Listen. Believe them. Support them. Healing is possible. Recovery is real. Claire is proof of that. If this story touched you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced betrayal? How did you heal? Let's create a space where we can support each other. And if you want to hear more stories of survival and hope, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching. And remember, you are stronger than you know.